Hey guys, let's talk about fuel storage and rotation. In this video I'm going to show you how I do it and give you some ways that you could do it yourself. So let's get started. Okay, let's get started with some containers here. Basically this one here, this is your basic Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot style container with the carb compliant nozzle. Total junk. It's a good way to get started, but they're not going to last, and you're going to be very frustrated with the way they seal. Secondly, I've got these 20-liter NATO containers. These are excellent quality. They are steel, and they seal very well. They also, a lot of them come with this spout that goes on here, and it enables you to pour it without having to use 3 hands like this one. It doesn't expand and contract like the plastic ones do, and they store very well. They have a great profile, great design. If you do decide to purchase these containers, I do recommend you doing your research on them. There are a bunch of cheap Chinese copies of these containers, and the seal here is not recessed on some of those containers. They stick out and they don't sit very well. They're just not very well made. So I would try to find the containers like this if you're going to purchase these with the recessed seam. Okay. Next is going to be a 15-gallon drum. These are excellent for storing fuel that you're going to want to put right in your vehicle from this container. These are not DOT compliant, but you know, who cares? They're better than these. These are heavy. They're going to weigh about 90 pounds when they're full, and it will require a bung wrench to get the top off and to get the cap off. So these you can usually source locally. They're probably around $15 is what I pay for them, considering these are 20 and they're 5-gallon. These are 15-gallon, and I can give you a shot of one of the containers that I have that's full, and I'll do that later. But as far as this one goes, this will store fuel. It will not leak. It will not leak vapor. So it's a great way to store fuel. You can keep these outside, protected from the sun, of course, but I recommend these. And like I said before, you can get these locally from a person that reclaims them. These at one time had some kind of pumpkin flavoring in them. So you just wash them out, rinse them out, use a pressure washer in them, clean them out real good, let them dry, and then you can fill them up with fuel. And as far as container goes, these are the 3 that I've been using. So I can only give you my recommendation on these 3. There are some other military-style containers that are very expensive and really not practical for just getting started in doing this. I wouldn't recommend it. They're made by Scepter, and they're very expensive. So I'm going to skip those because I don't have any. But I recommend these 3. This being my first choice because it's when you've got it full of fuel, it's manageable by most people. This one not so manageable, and this would be my last choice as far as fuel containers go. There are some alternatives that you can find to these containers as far as the cap goes. You can buy some aftermarket caps. They're hard to find, and the thread patterns are kind of, you'd almost have to buy them and see if they fit type thing. But there are a couple of companies that do make caps for these where you can get rid of these carb compliant nozzles and throw them away. So next I'm going to show you how I store it and how I rotate it out. Okay, so here are the 2 containers. They are the same container. This one's full of fuel, and this one's empty. And as you can see, they expand quite a bit, but they don't leak at all. And I didn't want to misspeak before when I stated about the weight of these, so I brought a scale out here. and I want to make sure that I quote the right weight, because the weight is an important factor in determining what containers to use based on your ability to lift these containers and get them into position where they can be used as to transfer into your tank or into your generator or into your mower, or however you decide you want to use this system. All right, I'm going to try to do this real time so you can see the scale. Here we go. Right at 94 pounds. So for 94 pounds for 15 gallons of fuel. And this is going to be for the 5-gallon can in the steel container. Okay, 41 pounds. And the plastic container is going to roughly be about the same. I would say right in the 38-pound range. So before I go any further, I want to talk about a couple of individuals that inspired me to change the way that I do this. And because originally when I was doing this, I was just getting the regular plastic containers and pouring them in my tank. It was pretty difficult to lift this up and try to get this into my fuel tank. This piece here doesn't bend, and then you torque this and it leaks at the connection here. It's just a big mess. So I listened to the Survival podcast with Jack Spirko, and one of his guests was a fellow by the name of Stephen Harris, and can't speak highly enough about Mr. Harris. If you've got a question, you can email him, and within minutes he's usually responding back to you. But one of his shows, he detailed on how to create a siphoning device. There's a couple other devices on the market. There's a shaker hose, but this works very well. This is like plug and play. You can walk away from this after you prime it. It's a primer bulb that you would see on, say, like a boat motor, and some 3/8 inch fuel line. You put one end in the tank, one end in the fuel tank that you're going to transfer to. Of course, one of these containers has to be higher than what you're filling it into, and let gravity do the work. No batteries, no electricity, nothing that's going to cause any kind of issue with a spark or anything like that. This is a great way to do it, and it's actually fairly cheap. I've got probably $10 in this setup. So I'm going to leave some links in the description on how to get to Stephen Harris's website and all the products that he sells and talks about. And I'm also going to list a link on where I got this product from. I got it from Amazon. It was fairly cheap. Okay, you're going to have to pardon the wind on this. It's been very windy here, and it's kind of put off me doing this video for quite a while because of the wind. And I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera, but I'm going to do my best to make it so that it's not cumbersome to listen to. Anyway, this is how I store, or where I store, my fuel. It's a cabinet that I built that sits outside and just uses standard pressure treated material, which I'm still painting, but it lets me be less worried about vapor and fire. And this was my primary motivation in designing and building this cabinet, was to keep the fuel outside of my garage, but keep it secured, because this cabinet locks and it's bolted to the wall. Obviously, just like anything else, you can get into it with some tools if you wanted to, but for the average person, it's going to be just fine. There are other ways that you can store fuel in containers, deck boxes and things like that, but I built this one so it would hold all my cans. The back is open, so it allows for there to be airflow through here, so there's no vapor can build up. And the decking material that I've used, let's see, the decking material that I used, if there's any leak, I'm going to know about it. It's going to drip through the bottom. It's going to saturate the concrete. I'm going to know about it. So this is just how I do it. I'm going to leave it up to you guys to decide how you're going to do it to fit your property. So I've covered containers and I've covered where I stored my fuel. Next thing I'm going to talk about is rotation and preserving the fuel. Basically what I do is when I get a new container or when I empty a container, I go ahead when it's empty and put the stabilizer in the empty container. Take it to the gas station and fill it up. This will blend the stabilizer adequately. And talk about stabilizer real quick. I use the Stabil brand. There's a couple other ones on the market. This is PRI-G. This is a good quality fuel stabilizer. It claims to be able to rejuvenate old fuel as well. So keep that in mind. When I put fuel in my vehicle from these containers, I try to put fuel in there that is no more than 6 months old. I always use a half full fuel tank in my vehicle so that I can mix the older fuel with the newer fuel. That's just how I do it. And also you want to note that according to the manufacturer of the Stabil product, this should only be used within 1 year of cracking the seal on it. So you just write the date on here when you open this up. I never have a problem going beyond that because I'm always rotating fuel out, and I go through these pretty quick. These are $8.96 at Walmart. That's where I get it. No plug for Walmart, but they do have the cheapest price on it. As far as rotation goes, this is probably one of the more important aspects of this whole deal. The way I do it is, well, probably the easiest way to do it, to start out in any case, is to purchase at least 1 or 2 containers and go to the gas pumps and fill it up. So your investment at that point is going to be the container and the fuel that goes into it. I recommend starting out with 12 containers. Not all at once, but purchase 1 a month or 2 a month. I think that's a reasonable thing to afford, along with the $2 a gallon worth of fuel. So your initial investment on a can like this is going to be $20 plus 5 gallons of gas. So you're talking $30 to get yourself started with 1 container. The next month comes around, you fill up another one until you get 12 containers. As you're doing that, you're going to start rotating the fuel out. So your initial investment of the $30 per 5 gallons is not going to be too terrible. You're going to have 12 containers with 60 gallons of fuel. 60 gallons of fuel goes a long way, especially when it comes to running generators, getting yourself to work. But the main thing is just a peace of mind knowing that you actually have extra fuel, that if there's a power outage, if there's some kind of natural disaster, if there's some kind of weather event that causes there to be a fuel shortage, or even just a day or 2 interruption, that's going to go a long way. You're not going to be one of those people standing in line getting aggravated at the gas pumps with the potential for a fist fight or damage of your vehicle. We've all seen the lines when it comes to the hurricanes and all that stuff, where you just look at Black Friday, look what happens on those days. I mean, it's the same type of mentality. And the last thing you want to be doing when you should be preparing for an event like that is to be getting hurt, getting in an altercation, getting arrested, what have you. This takes you out of that element when you can do this basically at your leisure. You don't have to worry about scrambling to get to the gas station. So anyway, once you have the 12 containers, I never go any more than 6 months of fuel. I don't like to let the fuel get more than 6 months old. Even though it's got the stabilizer in it, even though I fill it up with half a tank, I don't like to let it go any more than the 6 months. So basically what I do is I run my vehicle down to half a tank, come home, put 5 or 10 gallons worth of fuel in my vehicle, put those containers in the back of my truck, go to the gas station the next day, fill up the containers, and then top off my fuel tank on my truck. And I do that once a month. And then I've always got fresh fuel. One of the other things I do, I'm sure you saw the blue labels. Simple blue tape. I put the date that I filled the container up and the price of gas. You don't have to put the price of gas. That's just something I do to kind of remind myself of what the historical fuel prices were at that time. 6 months, I don't remember what the gas prices were 6 months ago. That's just for me. You don't have to do it, but that gives you a good mark. And then I go basically take the oldest fuel out of my cabinet, and that's what I put in my truck. So next I'm going to show you how I transfer the fuel into my vehicle. So I'm going to go outside, I'm going to pick the oldest fuel, and we're going to get it put in my truck. Okay, so again, pardon the wind. So this has a arrow as to the fuel flow that you want to make sure that you put it in the right way, because otherwise it won't transfer fuel. Prime the ball. And that's it. You can let it sit there and do that, and you'll know when it's empty. Just hoist another tank up there. I use the ladder. It's easier for me. Sometimes I set it on top of the toolbox. But the 15-gallon drum, I usually sit up here when I have to change it out. So I don't do that too often, but I do it every 6 months. So I get a lot more exercise with that than I do with this. So I'll let this drain out, and I'll finish the video up with my final thoughts here in just a moment. So a couple more things that I want to point out. One is to always have, I know when people say, oh, you should always do this or always do that. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I've done this quite a while, and I know from my past experience that you should always, always have an empty container, at least one, if not more. Because I'm telling you, as sure as I'm standing here in front of you in this video, one of these containers is going to leak, and then you're going to have to deal with 5 gallons of fuel and try to put it somewhere. Yeah, you might be able to put it in your vehicle. You might have a full tank. You might not be able to put it in your vehicle. Then what are you going to do with it? It's going to leak all over the place. It's going to be a fire hazard. Keep an extra container somewhere ready to go that you can put the remnants of a broken tank, a leaking tank. You could have one of these, fall down or whatever, crack. The what ifs are endless when it comes to that. So you want to definitely have an extra container. When it comes to these metal containers, these are pretty robust. They seal very well. And you can hear the vapor. Now, it's cooler out now than when these tanks were filled. So this is like when you do canning. There's going to be less pressure in this tank. So when you open that up, you're going to hear it. When it's hotter out, the liquid's going to expand, and you're going to have, some vapor escape. These are nice because this is a nice rubber O-ring here. Basically, put this on, and that does not leak at all. It's phenomenal how well this works. When you stow it, plastic thing there, nice and tight. They don't stand up too well in the back of a pickup truck, so you definitely want to make sure that you use a ratchet strap or something like that to secure it inside the vehicle. I would recommend never carrying fuel in a passenger car in the closed environment. It's just too dangerous. But if you have a truck, that's the best way to carry it, the bed of the pickup truck. Just make sure it doesn't fall over, just so you don't ruin the appearance of the container and stuff like that. So once again, I want to thank everyone for watching. Please check out Jack Spirko at the Survival Podcast and Stephen Harris. One final thing. This doesn't take a whole lot of effort, and I'm encouraging everyone to develop their own plan for their own house and vehicles and stick to it. You won't be disappointed that you make the effort to do this. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video. See ya.